Hidden Palace. It looks beautiful, and the music is great. Creates the perfect atmosphere for a level, but none of that matters if you can't beat the level. Why the hell does Metal Sonic have Eggman's voice clips? I mean, I hope that I can replace his voice clips with Sonic's. That would make things better. So, but if I can't do that, that's going to guarantee I'm never going to play this character again. I mean, the only way I can see it making sense is that Eggman spoke through Metal Sonic through an intercom in one of the Sonic Rivals games, because fuck giving him his own voice and character, apparently. But it doesn't sound like he's speaking through an intercom, it literally sounds like his SA2 voice clips Eggman. So that's weird. But yeah, you know this level's gonna suck right away, because you're forced to use a flying type, a climb, or a double jump to even leave the first room in the first place. What's that about every level being beatable with any character again? Yeah, sounds like some bullshit. That right away is an example of terrible level design. You go through some narrow hallways where you're forced to awkwardly dodge some fire at one point. Well, at least it's fast and fun. And then you suffer through the first forced combat section, with tiny projectile shooting enemies that Metal Knuckles can't fight worth shit. Surprise, surprise! He doesn't have a homing attack. His projectile doesn't have very much reach. And he can glide, but whatever. So I had to press R twice while being completely vulnerable and wide open to their attacks to switch to a character who could homing attack them. After a checkpoint, thankfully, the level actually has a mock speed zone naturally incorporated into it. Something that I wish happened more often, because it sounds like a pretty good idea. Unfortunately, although it is fun, like it's fast and stuff, there's bottomless pits at either side of you at all times, which I'd like to stress again, 06 didn't do. And sometimes even in the center of the road itself are pits to dodge. So not even the center of the road is safe. And you're forced to jump over a pit to progress during it at one point, as well as jump over other obstacles. And your controls moving left to right are a little bit slippery, you move too fast, though still not unplayable like in 06. All of this means that you're better off flying through this one. It's fun, except for the cheap part where they expect you to get really precise moving left and right around spike balls on the floor, because jumping will send you into the floating ones, when you're inclined to not just move around left and right to dodge stuff, because you move too much to left or right. And obviously rings are limited here, or else these mock speed zones would have little challenge. So you have to be really careful about dodging things. Sadly, ring scarcity happens a lot in this level, even in places full of enemies. After slowing myself down reluctantly to try to avoid the pace-breaking, rising spike rollers that I've hated ever since Emerald Coast, seriously, why are these here? I bounced through a beautiful tunnel, which starts at the speed section because there's nothing to do here, and you end up running forwards from it. It's fun, but again, it might as well be a glorified loading screen. And then you hit a checkpoint, jump ahead, and clip through the fucking floor. This is where the level started getting worse. Seriously, it doesn't look like I broke through ice here, but if I did, I would have at least liked some better indicator that it would have broken if I jumped on it the wrong way or jumped at the wrong place. Maybe have it be very cracked or something. After that, I had to go under a rolling spike roller once again, because between two of them was some magical ice seam that will freeze me solid for a few seconds, because that's how steam works. It freezes me solid, wasting my time. So you have to wiggle the control stick to get out. After that, I used the cannon to get to a higher place, which made me smile because it reminded me of Sonic Heroes. Very carefully jumped precisely into a hangar over a bottomless pit, because you can't homing attack it, because that would be too much like the boost games. And I was forced to suffer through 2 forced combat sections multiple times because I died. Did I mention that this level has checkpoint starvation? After this point, if you die in any of these combat sections, you have to go all the way back here. That's not frustrating at all. The first forced combat section feels very arbitrary. It's like they just put a box around the spring to piss you off. And the second glitched out and wouldn't let me progress with the level. Looking at this, I'm stomping on the orb, and it clearly has the box not around anymore, so it wants me to progress, but it just won't let me progress. And then I got stuck again. Yeah, this doesn't sound annoying. I think this is the perfect end to a flawed level. Seriously, this is beautiful. I really wasn't expecting this to happen again after Dawn Avenue, but I guess it did. This is definitely an example of a level that, if you're the kind of superficial person who, say, loves Music Plant as their favorite level in Sonic Advance 2, even though its level design sucks, just because of how beautiful and good it looks. If you're a superficial person, then you'll absolutely love this level because it looks and sounds gorgeous. But it has flaws with the gameplay. And again, I wasn't capable of beating it. Someone who beat Zelda 2 and liked most of it, and beat Sonic 2 for the Master System twice and liked most of it. Even I can't beat this level because it glitched out on me at the very end. And I just didn't feel like dying on purpose and going all the way back there again, even though I could fly with the tail stall, which looks kinda cute when you're playing it. It helps that it doesn't float ahead creepily like in Sonic R. Instead, you're mostly just flying with it. And the only problem I have with it is that, well, first, it's substitute for dummy ring bombs. I don't think it even has dummy ring bombs. So, like, the dummy ring bombs don't exactly have the best range to begin with, but this is even worse. It doesn't feel like it's even capable of attacking at all. And, well, aside from the stomp. And, of course, the tail stall has some annoying electronic robot voice clips when it flies and stuff. I really don't see why this needs to be necessary for robot characters in the first place. So what utility is programming robots to make noises when they do stuff unnecessarily? Doesn't that just drain the battery a little? But yeah, this level looks gorgeous, but they should have playtested it. I'm sure they would have had plenty of time to do that on their own. Sky Sanctuary. My god, this level could have put me to sleep! It's just boring basic platforming where you just jump on platforms, and that's literally it. This is why I like Heroes so much, because there's more to do than that in platforming. Not to mention that this level looks so much like Sky Sanctuary Zone from Generations, that not only does it come off as, no, we're not recycling Generations assets, this is our own original level, Sky Sanctuary. Not only does it come off as that, not only does it feel like they're sometimes outright reusing the same level design, like this section, this long drift section. It honestly makes me wish that I was playing Generations Sky Sanctuary Zone instead. And that is not a good thing. See, this is why I like Generations better. And even then, like, this level, this game definitely controls a lot better for the kind of bland platforming that Sky Sanctuary Zone is going for in both games. But that doesn't really matter if you don't have a drop shadow. I can't feel confident about platforming in a level where I don't have a drop shadow. Especially not when I have to land on such white clouds that, such bright white clouds that they kind of blend into the sky below me. I can barely even tell if I'm above them or not. Unfortunately, the characters that I went into this level with turned out to be disappointments. Well, I already know about Eggman, he's fine. Gamma, or rather Beta, who I was still expecting to play like Gamma because he looks almost just like him. Unfortunately, they didn't even try to give him the same gameplay as the mechs. Even though you would expect that because Gamma was basically the precursor to the mechs in SA2. Instead, pressing the shoot button just makes him shoot an enemy, and you better hope that he hits it. I felt like he hits it all the time, but I really expected him to play like Eggman and Tails in his mech. But he doesn't. And of course, his hover, that's another thing, he has the exact same hover as them, so you think that he'd have the same gameplay as them. And his hover, once again, is exactly like them. He starts hovering from a standstill, going forwards. So it doesn't really feel safe to use it to platform. I mean, I still use it, because it's safer to rely on the hover than to rely on platforming over bottomless pits with no drop shadow. On tiny platforms at that. But still, it feels slippery to control when the hover won't stop moving no matter what you do. And it's kind of annoying hearing his voice clips, literally having him say jumping when he's jumping. And like basically verbalizing everything he's saying. And granted, Gamma did that too, saying pick up, put down, mode change, but he didn't say jumping every single time he jumped, because guess what, that would have been really annoying. It also feels like his voice clips are kind of unnerving the way he talks. At least Gemerald controls basically like Emerald. He's the Sonic clone. He homie attacks, which is great. Unfortunately, Gamma, or Beta rather, moves pretty slowly, so it's not very exciting. He makes the level feel even more boring than it already is, because you're moving slowly through it. And I have to be him because it's necessary to have his hover as a crutch, because there's platforming over bottomless pits with no drop shadow. Oh, I didn't have a huge problem with no drop shadow before. Well, it was still an unacceptable problem, but in this level in particular, it's really obnoxious. I don't understand why they have to have no drop shadow in this game. I mean, if they really did recycle the graphics from Generations to make this game, fine, but I don't see why they couldn't have gone through the trouble of making a gray circle appear below your character when he jumps. Was that really too difficult to program? I don't understand. This level just was really boring. I mean, I like being able to spin dash jump over Generations level design. That's cool. But I just, like in these sections in the beginning where it reminds you of the quick stepping section early on in the level, it just makes me wish I had the boost. You can't have... Playing this game reminds me of why I like the boost. At least I can always go fast most of the time. And the platforming is 2D platforming with tons of different abilities that you have, like the wall jump and the stomp and stuff like that. So when it does have platforming, it's at least interesting and not boring, bland, just jump on platforms in 3D, and you're almost guaranteed to land on them because they're so gigantic compared to 2D platforms. Unless you have no drop shadow. Run around and explore? Well, why is there an emblem for it then? How am I supposed to know what to do to get the emblem? And wasn't the normal goal ring mission turned into run around and explore anyways? Because once you get the emblem for it, going into the goal ring in that mission takes you back to the start of the level anyways? Anyways, Metal Sonic 3.0 was a major disappointment because even though he's clearly a Sonic clone, because he's a Sonic robot, he can't homie attack. He can just levitate. Well, that destroys his usefulness. If I want a character who can if I want to play as a character who can levitate, I'm gonna play as Silver or Nicole. And as for the other characters that I missed, the commander can glide like Knuckles. I wish I had shown off climbing with him too, because that would have looked pretty goofy. Playing as a human character in a Sonic game in general looks really goofy. He can shoot ahead of him, and he has a very short range melee attack. And then there's the Chow robot. I've already forgotten its name. It moves extremely slowly. And it has the mech shooting gameplay. So it's basically an inferior version of Tails from the mech. And then there's the Egg Robot, who's actually possibly the best character in the game. No, I'm not kidding. Because even though it doesn't play like the mech characters with its shooting style, it's still a million times better than it. In fact, its projectile shooting is possibly the best projectile shooting in the entire game. Because it shoots a whole mass of projectiles in front of it. And the mech characters, it feels random whether they're going to actually hit the enemy that they clearly targeted or not. But with the Egg Robo, it actually feels like you're guaranteed to hit any enemy as long as it's right in front of you. It feels like Gamma, almost. I mean, Gamma still doesn't target enemies. And best of all, its hover, well, that's not best of all, but its hover actually doesn't move you forwards from a standstill. So its hover controls the way that the mech character's hover should have controlled in this game in the first place. Basically, the Egg Robo is everything that I wanted in a mech character in this game. It can even go relatively fast. I just wish that it wasn't, an Egg Robo, because then it's on Eggman's side. And normally, I'm pretty reluctant to play this game with villain characters alongside, on the same side as hero characters. It feels weird, it feels inconsistent with the story that I've given to this game myself. So I can't really play this character with my team anyways without feeling weird inconsistency. Okay, there's Sonic, there's Miles, who's working with the Freedom Fighters now, and then there's the Egg Robo, who's just kinda awkwardly there, and you're wondering, why is an evil robot of Eggman's there? But that's a minor nitpick. I can understand why they saved this character for last, or at least one of the last characters that you ever unlock. Because it's basically the only character who only fights with projectiles that fights well with them. As for Kingdom Valley, piece of shit level that hasn't been playtested. Seriously, why is the camera moving where I'm moving? Why isn't it staying centered directly behind me? Not even 06 had problems like this. And it being a fan game is no excuse. They had plenty of time to playtest this and actually see if it's good before releasing it to the fans. They're fans themselves, so they should know how Sonic games can be good and how they can be bad, and know what to fix about them. They should have plenty of time to play the level that they just made and realize, maybe I should fix the problem where the camera doesn't stay directly behind me. Maybe I should fix the fact that it's completely confusing going to the right on water. That's another thing. In 06's version of this level, they made it obvious that while you were running on water, there was still clearly solid ground below you. And, I don't know, this is just confusing. And when you're running on the side of something, if you get hit, then you fall off the wall, because you're suddenly not running on the wall anymore. Although it's hard to remember that you are running on the wall because the camera isn't showing it. This level doesn't have nearly enough checkpoints. And I honestly wasn't able to beat it because it glitched out in a scripted sequence and I was unable to beat it at all. At least when 06 glitched out in its scripted sequences, it killed you instead of making you completely stuck and forcing you to restart the entire level all over again. In a level with checkpoint starvation at that. I don't remember this level being as bad as it is. I mean, I never got the emblem for it, but this game has a thing where you don't get the emblem for a level until you beat it with a high enough rank, which can make it easy to forget whether you've actually beaten it or not. But yeah, the biggest problem with the level is the camera. Why is it acting like this? And it really sucks too, because this is the last level in the game, and I can't end it off on a good note. Unfortunately, there are a bunch of X's below this level, which for some reason only sometimes show up. So, does this mean that this is a fan game where you're forced to beat bosses to unlock levels, rather than having all the levels unlocked from the start? I mean, if there's gonna be 10 billion levels that are playable right from the moment you start the game, then forcing us to unlock levels after that seems extremely arbitrary. Why can't we just have all the levels unlocked from the start then, if we're going to have so many levels unlocked from the start anyways? Why do I have to beat horrible boss fights that suck? I'm assuming they suck because, well, not only is it a Sonic game, bosses always suck in Sonic games, but it's also a fan game, so you never know. Again, I don't think this being a fan game excuses or makes me have to expect that it's going to suck or have problems, because there's no reason they couldn't have played it. This isn't a game that was released and made by clueless people out of touch with the Sonic fan base. This is a game made by people who are Sonic fans, who should know what's working about Sonic games and what isn't, who should have had plenty of time to play the levels they made and realize what should be fixed and what shouldn't. If anything, it being a fan game is even less of an excuse for having problems like this. That's why constructive criticism for fan games is especially important, because they might actually listen to it and fix the problems potentially, whereas complaining about problems in official games will get you a patch at the very best. Well, it could also improve the next game, but that's the next game. My closing thoughts is that this is a great game. There are plenty of great levels in it, especially at the start. And that's the thing, Sonic games in general tend to have terrible levels, or at least not as great levels at the very end of it. What Sonic game doesn't have its levels decrease in quality the more you progress the game? Because obviously that requires increasing the difficulty, and it's hard to make it more difficult without making it more cheap by accident. So yeah, I don't think it deserves its reputation as, well, does it have, for the most part, a bad reputation? Because this is a great game, it's just that it has some jank in it, it has some bad levels. Occasionally it has glitches, and sometimes those glitches can literally get you stuck, which doesn't happen in the adventure games. But I feel like they could fine-tune it. It's just confusing because this is apparently the 8th version of this game, and they're still too lazy to fix the actual issues for the game. Instead, they added a Chow Garden, which was very half-assed, and just completely destroys all the stats of your Chow after it reincarnates without having a ranking system as a motivator to actually reincarnate it. So basically, I barely used the Chow Garden at all towards the end of this retrospective thing, because I didn't want my only Chow with good stats to die, because I couldn't find the stupid randomly spawning golden fruit. So even the Chow Garden, which a lot of people were happy to see it come in this game, I don't know. Yeah, this is a great game that's definitely worth playing. There's definitely a lot of levels that you should play. It feels like the next Sonic Adventure. It feels like the next Sonic Adventure game, but it also feels not like it because it's a little, you know.